Yeah, I've experienced a lot of tough times. You know, life is full of stress and challenges, especially when you're working with a lot of people and a lot of churches and, needs of folks. You know, we're in a really tough economy in the United States right now, and the budget's tight, and, we're paying 100 pastors and, 135 churches, and we got hospitals and schools and all that. So, the economy can be a tough time, and I've found myself waking up in the middle of the night and talking to God about it. God, it's your church. How are you going to fund it? And His Word often speaks back to me the comfort and promises that I need, and that's a two-way prayer dialogue to me. He says, call on me and I will answer, and I believe He does. It's not always the way I want. Sometimes He says, wait. Sometimes He says, I'm giving you something different than you think you need, but it's always good. God has said, I'll never fail you or forsake you. I believe that. Sometimes when people don't have enough what they'd like to, they wonder if He's failed them. But I think the Hebrew worthies you mentioned is a good example. Daniel's buddies, they did get thrown over the threshold into the fiery furnace, but actually that promise in Isaiah 43, I believe, had been sent to them. You look at it historically, ahead of the king threatening them with the fire, and they knew that Jesus said, I will be with you when you go through the fire. And so, sure enough, they went into the fire, and I believe they survived it according to the Scripture. Now, that's a miracle, and some people wouldn't believe it, but I believe it.
Yeah, some of us blokes are somewhat skeptical.
Yeah.
The apostles, the 12 disciples of Jesus, believed in prayer.
Mm-hmm. Sure did.
11 of them were killed.
Yeah.
So it doesn't sound like the prayer worked.
Well, most people that have prayed have died. A few may have lived on in resurrection, but there's a resurrection coming, I believe. But prayer doesn't mean you're not going to get sick. It doesn't mean you're not going to die. It does mean that you're calling on God for whatever He wants to do for you and in you, and to be with you during whatever you go through. But life is, nothing's ever been promised to prayers that they won't have trials and problems and all of those things. To me, prayer is the presence of God. When I sense His presence, when I'm talking to Him, opening my heart as to a friend, that often is the answer I need. I shared some illustrations today with some people about how in the toughest times, He didn't tell me the answers to my budget crisis. Instead, He gave me an evidence that was so unique to me that I knew He's alive and that He's with me. And that's all I really needed. I knew He'd take care of the problem eventually. I would say that in my life, God didn't always give me the money I wanted, but over years I have seen that He gave me something better sometimes, a trust, a faith, that He would take care of me in the end. And I believe our seemingly unanswered prayers, someday we're going to see to have been some of our greatest blessings. If God really wanted to punish me, I believe He'd say yes to all my prayers. I really believe that, because I asked for the wrong thing many times. Often apparent defeats turn into be the greatest victories. To me, Jesus on the cross of Calvary seemed to be the greatest defeat ever. Here He is dying naked, people mocking Him. But I believe He was resurrected. I believe He's coming again. He's God. And so that great defeat will be the greatest victory of ever.